All right, Alexander, let's talk about another bank meltdown. This bank from California, PacWest, looks like it's in big trouble. There are a couple more banks as well, which are having troubles, and there's a long, long list of banks which could have trouble in the short to medium term. What do you think is going on here? Because Jerome Powell, he gave a speech. He said the banking system is stable and secure and strong and all of these things. And then 2 hours later, you get the news about PacWest. So obviously, something is being hidden from the American public.
I'm afraid I agree. Now, in the past, when we've talked about this, I've said that you can't ever be absolutely sure that a financial or banking crisis is on the way. I think we're now seeing too many indicators that this is indeed the case. When one bank fails, well, you could argue that's an isolated phenomenon. I think this is the fourth American bank in a row to tumble since March. I say that, it definitely seems to be in severe crisis. And of course, we also had the collapse of Credit Suisse in Switzerland. So it does increasingly look to me like we're looking at a major crisis in the banking system. Now, I've seen a list of banks that are said to be in trouble. It may be the same list that you've seen. There are some big names there, and I don't want to say which ones, but there's one bank, there was even a report in the Daily Telegraph the other day, which said that there's one very big bank which looks like it could be in serious trouble as well. They didn't say which one it was. So it does increasingly look to me as if there are problems in the banking system. And there are also now accumulating indicators that not all is well with the economy generally in terms of, there's strong indicators that a recession is indeed coming. And the risk is that we're going to see a feedback. The signs of recession are going to aggravate the problems of the banking system. The problems of the banking system are going to deepen the recession. And I think we're getting dangerously close to that point, in which case we are potentially in a 2008 situation or something like it.
What needs to be done? What can happen? Because, Biden has his own problems now as well with these FBI reports. Allegedly, this whistleblower and the FBI have these documents, and the Republicans would like to see these documents of quid pro quos. Things are not looking too good for the Biden White House in general on the domestic front.
Well, I think that if I can say this, if there really are problems in the banking system, then having these confident statements from people like Jerome Powell that all is well, there's no cause for concern, the banking system is sound, the fundamentals are sound, the kind of things that are always said on the eve of a crash, I don't think that really helps the situation. I think a little bit more honesty and indicators that the president and his team are on the case might actually be more reassuring to the markets than, spinning these tales that there isn't any reason to worry. The problem is the president, as you rightly said, looks distracted because there are these reports which, to be straightforward about it, are consistent with what we've been saying about Biden for a very long time and what others have been saying about Biden also. Read Jonathan Turley's blog column, Res Ipsa Loquitur. He's been talking, and this is a lawyer, this is a professor of law at George Washington University. I mean, this isn't somebody who, goes out making partisan points. He's been saying, that there's been these problems with Biden, personal problems, these practices of Biden for a very long time. We've talked about the activities of Hunter. We've talked about the laptop. We talked about all of these things. So it's not surprising that all of this is going on. And of course, beyond that, the president himself, as lots of people are saying, and as most of the American people also think, is too old for the job. He is old and he doesn't look, to say it straightforwardly, like the kind of dynamic, energetic man that you need in charge at a time of crisis. So I think difficult to imagine this president doing very much. If you look at his team, difficult to see them doing very much. They're focused on other things, like who is to be the next president, assuming Biden wins, whether it will be Harris or someone else. They got themselves into all those kind of problems. They have scandals to worry about. They are worried and obsessed with Ukraine. They're worried about the conflict in China. I don't think they're really paying as much attention as they should to these problems in the banking system. What their instinct is to draw down the blinds, to pretend this isn't happening, to use their control of the media to, as I said, keep the narrative focused on other things. And with the banking crisis, if it gets out of control, you can't do that. So what they should do, coming back to your original question, the president can't do it, they should appoint someone who can do it. They should get somebody to take charge of the situation, find out what is going on with the banks, hold meetings with the bankers, see what's going on. In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt, FDR, he faced a banking crisis when he became president. He immediately stepped in and took control. He imposed a bank holiday. He did all kinds of things to bring the banking system under control. And then it was a very, very bad situation indeed. But that doesn't seem to be the situation today. We're getting instead a retreat into denialism.
Yeah. Media management.
Media management. It's what they.
The media narrative about it.
Yes,
yeah.
It's
what they always do.
It's what they always do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. What do you make of the analysis that this is deliberate and this is all about closing the small to medium-sized banks so that you can consolidate everything under 4 or 5 major big banks?
It's not impossible because, by the way, something very like that happened in Britain. I lived through it in the 1970s. The secondary banking system in Britain, the small regional banks, all collapsed one after the other. I remember it when it happened, and we ended thereafter. We ended up thereafter in a situation where the entire banking system became consolidated in 5 big banks, which then became 4 big banks. And which are now even fewer banks than that. So things like that have happened, and there was a fairly widespread view in Britain at that time in the 70s that there were some people who weren't sorry to see that happen. But all I would say is, if that is the plan, and maybe it is, one, the United States is a very different country from Britain. It's a federal country. It's a huge country. It's decentralized and dispersed. Consolidating the banking system in that way will change America's culture and economic system far more radically than it did in Britain, which is a centralized country. That's the first thing. The second is that it will create an enormous amount of chaos within the banking system whilst this process is working its way through. And that might not be good for the Democrats and for Biden, who have an election to win next year, because the crisis, you might actually, some people might welcome consolidation. I don't, by the way. I think it would be a disaster for the US if that happened. But I would not personally welcome consolidation in that kind of way. We talk about consolidation. Centralization is perhaps a better term. And centralization, of course, also increases control over the economy, which is, of course, the opposite of how America has functioned in the past. But we can go into those discussions in a later day. But assuming that is your objective, and it's not impossible that there are some people with that objective, well, that might work for them, but I don't see how it works for Biden and for the Democrats who have an election to win next year.
Yeah. All right, we will leave it there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rockfin, Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram. And go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.